I always believed my wedding day would be the happiest moment of my life. I was holding my bouquet, ready to walk down the aisle, when the photographer stepped in front of me. Her voice was low but urgent as she said, "Isabella, you need to check your groom's phone right now." She showed me a photo she had taken just minutes ago, and my vision blurred. My heart didn't just drop, it shattered. And in that moment, I realized my entire life was about to change before I even said my vows. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from so I can welcome you personally. My name is Isabella Hayes, and ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed of a wedding filled with love, family, and everything pure. I was raised by my mother, Ruth, a strong and kind woman who spent her entire life making sure I never felt alone. I never had a father figure growing up, so when I met Nathan Cole, I didn't just fall in love. I felt safe for the first time in my life. Nathan was everything a woman could ask for. He was attentive, respectful, and always said the right words. He planned surprise dates, helped my mother with house repairs, and spoke to me with so much warmth that I believed God had finally rewarded me with a good man. My best friend Jenna would joke, "You won the husband lottery, Bella. The rest of us are still out here praying." The wedding venue looked like something out of a dream. White roses lined the aisle, gentle music floated through the air, and every seat was filled with smiling faces. My mother stood beside me in the bridal suite, fixing my veil with trembling hands. Her eyes were filled with pride as she said, "You deserve every bit of this happiness. Nathan loves you. I can see it in the way he looks at you." I smiled, believing every word. I remembered how Nathan held my hands the night before the wedding and said, "No matter what happens tomorrow, just know you are my forever." Those words touched me so deeply that I slept with tears of joy in my eyes. But there was a strange moment earlier that morning. As I was walking across the venue, I saw Nathan standing with a woman I vaguely recognized. She was smiling at him in a way that made something inside me pause. When she noticed me, she quickly walked away. I brushed it off, telling myself every wedding is filled with emotion and nerves. Maybe I was overthinking. My maid of honor, Jenna, burst into the room with excitement, saying, "Are you ready, bride? The guests are waiting. Nathan looks like he's about to faint from happiness." We laughed, and for a moment, everything was perfect again. I took a deep breath, holding my bouquet close to my chest. The doors were about to open. My future was waiting at the other end of the aisle. I had no idea that the truth was about to come crashing into my world before I ever took that first step. Stay with me, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust. The wedding coordinator gently knocked on the bridal suite door and called out that it was time. My heart skipped as the music outside changed to the bridal procession melody. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. I saw a bride glowing with happiness, a woman who believed she was walking into a future built with trust. But just as I turned toward the doors, Avery, the photographer, stepped inside. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes held something between concern and urgency. She approached me slowly, almost as if she was trying not to frighten me. In a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Isabella, before you walk out there, I need you to look at something." At first, I thought it was a last-minute fix on my dress or makeup, but then she held out her camera, and my heartbeat quickened. She turned the screen toward me, and my world stopped. There, captured in crystal clarity, was Nathan standing in a secluded hallway behind the venue. His face was close to another woman's, so close their foreheads were touching. Her hand was on his chest, and she was smiling up at him in a way that was undeniably intimate. It wasn't a friendly hug or a casual interaction. It was the kind of closeness that only happens between two people who share something secret. The background in the photo confirmed it was taken just minutes earlier, before the ceremony while guests were being seated. I felt my knees weaken. My fingers went numb, and I almost dropped the bouquet. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was crying and he was comforting her. Maybe there was some logical reason. But the expression on Nathan's face in that photo wasn't sympathy or concern. It was tenderness, the kind a man only shows to the woman he loves. "Who is she?" I asked, hearing the tremor in my own voice. Avery hesitated before answering. "Her name is Elena Ward. She's one of your groom's guests. I didn't think much of her earlier until I saw him lead her away from the crowd." I recognized the name. Elena was a longtime friend of Nathan's sister, Vivian. She had always been around during family dinners and events, but she kept her distance from me. I had assumed she was just shy or reserved. Now I realized she had been watching and waiting. A sharp knock sounded on the door. It was the wedding planner again, alerting us that the groom was already in position and the guests were standing. My chest tightened. My mother looked at me, confused. "What's wrong? What happened?" she asked, taking a step forward. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up, and I could only point to the camera in Avery's hands. My mother's expression changed instantly as she saw the image. Her eyes hardened. She wasn't shocked. She was furious. "I knew something was off about that girl," she said quietly, as if speaking to herself. Jenna, my maid of honor, rushed to my side. "Do you want me to confront him right now? Say the word," she said, already moving toward the door. But I stopped her. I needed clarity before I let my emotions take control. I needed to be sure. Heart pounding, I asked Avery, "Is there more? Did you see anything else?" She nodded, hesitating again. "There's a video. I accidentally switched to video when I saw them together. I thought they were arguing, so I kept recording." She pressed play. The video wasn't long, but it didn't need to be. It showed Nathan telling Elena, "You know this doesn't change anything between us. I told you I have to go through with this." Elena responded softly, "Then promise me it won't last." Nathan stepped closer, and the video ended. My breath came out in a sharp exhale. My wedding dress suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. The room started spinning. My future, the life I thought I was about to start, was no longer real. It was built on a lie. Every memory of Nathan flashed through my mind in rapid succession. The way he had kissed my forehead at the rehearsal dinner. The way he had told my mother he would take care of me. The promises he made. The words he used. The dreams we spoke about late at night, believing our lives were about to merge into one. All of it now felt tainted. Guests were still standing. The music was still playing. Out there, everyone believed a beautiful love story was about to be sealed. Inside this room, I was discovering that the man I loved was preparing for a lifetime with me, while secretly holding on to another woman. I could hear the faint sound of applause from outside, signaling the start of the ceremony. My mother placed her hand over mine and said in a firm voice, "You don't have to walk down that aisle. Not for him. Not for anyone." A storm of emotions raged inside me. Shock, betrayal, anger, heartbreak. But beneath all of it, something else began to rise. Strength. I wiped my tears. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew this. My wedding day was no longer about celebration. It was about truth. And the truth was just beginning to surface. I stood in the center of the bridal suite, surrounded by the women who loved me most. My mother, Ruth, stood at my right side with a look I had only seen once before, the same look she gave when she fought to keep our home from being taken years ago. My maid of honor, Jenna, paced back and forth, furious and ready to storm out to expose Nathan in front of every single guest. Avery, the photographer, stood quietly against the wall, watching me with gentle concern, as if she knew this moment was bigger than a wedding. It was the moment a woman decides who she truly is. The music outside changed to the entrance march. I heard the wedding coordinator's voice muffled through the doors, trying to time my walk down the aisle. But I wasn't going to walk down that aisle until I had answers. I looked in the mirror again, but this time, I didn't see a broken bride. I saw a woman on the edge of transformation. The betrayal still burned like a fresh wound, but an inner fire was rising, replacing tears with clarity. I picked up my phone and typed a quick message to Nathan. Come to the bridal suite. Alone. Now. I didn't wait for a response. I knew he would come because he always wanted to be in control of every moment, every appearance, every perception. I was about to take that control back. Minutes felt like hours until there was a light knock on the door. The room fell silent. Jenna moved toward the door, but I held up my hand. This was my battle, my future, my truth to confront. I opened the door, and Nathan stood there looking confused, smiling nervously in his white tuxedo. Everything okay? The guests are waiting, he said, attempting to step past me into the room. I blocked him. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. I saw a photo and a video. You have 10 seconds to tell me the truth before I walk out there and end this in front of everyone. His face drained of color. What are you talking about? He asked, forcing a laugh. He glanced inside the room, noticing my mother, Jenna, and Avery, all of them standing like silent witnesses. The laughter died in his throat. I held up the camera with the image paused on the video frame. His eyes flickered with panic. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Tell me why you were with Elena 10 minutes before our wedding, I said. My voice was no longer shaking. It was commanding. Nathan exhaled sharply and looked at the floor. It's not what it looked like, he began, but I cut him off. Then what was it? He finally looked up. His eyes softened, the way they always did when he was about to manipulate someone emotionally. She's going through something. She got emotional. I was just trying to calm her down, he said. Jenna scoffed loudly, and my mother crossed her arms. I knew he was lying. I could always tell by the way he blinked twice before giving an answer. I took a deep breath. Do you love her? The question hung in the air, heavy and final. Nathan hesitated, and that hesitation was the answer. I didn't need him to say the words. Silence told me everything. I nodded, the final piece of my heart breaking free from him. Then you will not marry me today, and you will not use me for whatever plan you had, I said quietly. For the first time since I had met him, Nathan dropped the gentle mask. His expression hardened. Use you? He said, his voice changing. Isabella, be reasonable. We've invested too much into this wedding. Think about the money, the guests, your reputation. His words were sharp and cold. In that moment, I realized something critical. Nathan didn't see this wedding as a commitment. He saw it as a transaction, a merger, a performance. My mother stepped forward. This conversation is over, she said firmly. My daughter will not be walking down that aisle today. Nathan tried to protest, but I raised my hand and walked past him toward the mirror again. I adjusted my veil, no longer as a symbol of devotion, but as armor. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was ready to confront everything truthfully. Just then, the door opened again, this time without a knock. Vivian, Nathan's sister, stood there with tears in her eyes. She looked directly at me and said, "Isabella, I need to tell you the truth. This is not the first time he has done this. I begged him to stop. I warned him this morning that if he did anything to hurt you, I would no longer protect him." Nathan turned to her, shocked. "Vivian, get out," he snapped. But she ignored him. Vivian stepped inside. "You deserve to know. Elena has been in his life for years. He promised her he would end things with you after the wedding, once certain financial agreements were finalized." The room erupted in a wave of silent horror. I felt like the air had been punched from my lungs. Everything was clear now. This was not just betrayal. It was premeditated deception. I turned to Nathan and said the words I never imagined I would say on my wedding day. "You will not decide my future. I will." And in that moment, I made my choice, not as a victim, but as a woman reclaiming her power. The wedding was no longer a ceremony. It was about to become my moment of truth in front of everyone watching. I walked toward the grand double doors of the ceremony hall, my wedding gown flowing behind me like a declaration of battle. My heart beat hard in my chest, not from fear, but from the dawning realization that this was the moment I would take control of my life. Behind me, my mother and Jenna followed in silence, standing firmly in my corner. Vivian stayed behind to confront her brother privately, but I could still hear muffled voices, Nathan's sharp anger clashing with her emotional pleas. I didn't wait for either of them. I didn't need more arguments. I needed truth. I needed closure. Above all, I needed to choose myself. As I touched the handle of the door, every emotion became sharper. The scent of roses, the low violin music, the soft hush of hundreds of people waiting for me, all things I had once imagined with joy, now felt like the stage for a truth the world was about to witness. When I pushed the doors open, the room fell into complete silence. Every head turned toward me. I could see faces full of emotion, joy shifting into confusion at the sight of my solemn expression. Nathan was at the altar, smiling expectantly when he first spotted me. But as I walked forward alone, with no father figure or family escorting me, his smile faltered. His eyes searched mine, trying to read what I intended to do. Elena, the woman in the photo, was seated in the second row on his side, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. The air itself felt tense, as if everyone could sense something was wrong, but no one dared to speak. I reached the center of the aisle and stopped. The music faded out completely. I looked directly at Nathan, and in the stillness of that moment, I spoke in a voice clear enough for every person in the room to hear. "Before I take another step toward this altar, there is something I need to share," I said. A faint murmur spread across the room. Some guests glanced at each other. Others leaned forward, captivated. Nathan took a step down from the altar, his hands raised slightly as if he could somehow stop what was coming. "Isabella, we can talk in private," he said under his breath. But I didn't move. I didn't waver. "This wedding is supposed to be a celebration of love built on trust," I said. "But a marriage cannot begin with secrets. And today, I was shown undeniable proof that the man standing at that altar has been lying, not just to me, but to every one of you who came here to witness our vows." The gasps echoed through the room. Nathan's face flushed with panic as he glanced at his guests. He stepped closer and whispered harshly, "What are you doing? This is not the place." But I took a step back, refusing to let him silence me. I held up Avery's camera, the very device that had captured the truth, and continued, This morning, just minutes before I was supposed to walk down this aisle, Nathan was seen embracing another woman backstage. There is photographic and video evidence. He promised her that marrying me wouldn't change anything between them. The crowd erupted. People turned toward Elena, who was trembling in her seat. Nathan's mother covered her mouth in shock. Some guests stood up whispering, while others stared in complete disbelief. Nathan lunged forward, trying to reach the camera, but Jenna stepped between us with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Nathan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Yes, I made a mistake," he said loudly, trying to regain control of the narrative. But it was a moment of confusion. "Isabella, we can fix this. You're overreacting. We both know this wedding means everything to you." His words were calm, but his eyes were pleading. He wanted me to fall back into the safety of denial, to protect his image. But I was no longer the woman who needed his validation. Then Vivian stood up from the front row and spoke with a trembling voice. "Stop lying, Nathan. You told Elena you would annul the marriage once you secured certain financial documents connected to Isabella's inheritance." The room froze. Elena burst into tears. Nathan's face twisted in anger, but the truth was out. The betrayal was now undeniable. It was no longer a private heartbreak. It was a public unmasking. I turned to the guests, feeling a strange serenity wash over me. I stand here, not as a broken bride, but as someone who refuses to be chained by lies. Today was supposed to be the beginning of my new life, and it still is, but not with a man who sees love as a transaction. Nathan tried to approach me again, but this time my mother stood in his path. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her presence alone was a shield. I lifted my chin. This wedding is canceled. I will not be marrying Nathan Cole. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Some people clapped in support. Others sat in stunned silence. But as I turned away from the altar, something incredible happened. Guests began to stand, not in judgment, but as a sign of respect. Avery lowered her camera with tears in her eyes. Jenna rushed to my side, taking my hand. I stood at the center of the aisle, not as a bride abandoned, but as a woman who chose truth over illusion and dignity over deception. My heart was broken, but my spirit was unshaken. Little did I know, this painful moment was not the end. It was the beginning of everything I was destined to become. As I stood there in the center of the aisle, the weight of what I had just done settled over the room like a quiet storm. I expected to feel humiliated. I expected to feel small, broken, or lost. Instead, I felt something I hadn't expected at all: freedom. It was as if my spirit had been held underwater for months, maybe even years, without me knowing, and suddenly I had taken my first real breath. The whispers swirled through the ceremony hall, but I no longer heard them as threats. They sounded like confirmation. I had stood up for myself in front of everyone, and instead of collapsing, I felt stronger than I had ever been. Nathan's face was a mix of disbelief and desperation. For the first time, the calm, composed man who had always been in control looked powerless. He tried to reach for me one final time, his voice low and frantic. "Isabella, don't do this. Think about your future." I turned to him, not with anger, but with clarity. "I just did, and you are not in it." With those words, I walked away from the altar, the veil falling slightly off my shoulder, not as a symbol of loss, but of release. Guests began to stand, not out of obligation, but out of respect. Some clapped softly, others nodded with tears in their eyes. My mother opened her arms as I reached her, and when she pulled me into her embrace, everything I had ever feared in that moment vanished. She whispered, You didn't lose a husband today. You saved your life. What surprised me most was the reaction of the people I thought would judge me. Instead, they approached me one by one, telling me how brave I was. An elderly woman placed a hand over mine and said, "Most brides would have walked through those doors and lived with regrets forever. You chose truth over comfort. That's power." As I walked down that aisle a final time, not as a bride, but as a woman reborn, something inside me healed. The wedding decorations, the music, the expectations, all of it faded behind me like a scene from a life that was never truly meant to be mine. Days turned into weeks. The story of my wedding spread across town, but to my surprise, I was not portrayed as the abandoned bride. I was the woman who walked away with dignity. Some people called it shocking, others called it inspiring. What mattered to me was that I had taken control of my narrative. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't attempt to explain myself to strangers. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my heart, my life, and my future. I moved back into my childhood home temporarily to be with my mother. At first, I wondered if being back in my old room would make me feel like a failure, but instead, it reminded me of who I was before life became complicated. Every morning, I woke up and went for long walks, letting the fresh air clear the last remaining fog of heartbreak. I started journaling again. I wrote not about pain, but about purpose. Even Jenna moved in with me for a few weeks to keep me laughing, cooking meals, and reminding me that life after betrayal is not emptiness. Sometimes, it is expansion. Then one morning, I received a message from Avery, the photographer. She sent a link and wrote, "This was inspired by you." I opened it to find that she had launched a scholarship fund dedicated to helping young women build careers in photography, named the Isabella Fund for Truth in Art. I was stunned. Avery wrote, "You reminded me that capturing truth is not just a profession, it is a responsibility. Your courage changed more than your life that day. It changed mine, too." I cried reading those words, not from sadness, but from awe. My broken wedding day had somehow turned into a ripple effect of empowerment. Months later, I stood in front of a small audience at a community event for women recovering from betrayal, trauma, or emotional manipulation. They had asked me to speak. As I faced the crowd, I realized something profound. The moment I lost everything I thought I wanted was the moment I made space for everything I truly deserved. I told them, "You are not defined by the love you lose. You are defined by the love you choose, especially the love you choose for yourself." Today, I am not married. I am not planning a wedding or chasing anyone's approval. Instead, I am building a life centered on peace, truth, and authenticity. I started a small business with Jenna that helps women plan events that celebrate milestones of strength, not just weddings, but healing journeys, solo successes, and new beginnings. Vivian eventually apologized deeply and explained how she had been controlled by her brother's lies for years. She and I are now cautiously rebuilding a friendship based on honesty. As for Nathan, I don't know where he is now, and for the first time, I don't want to know. His chapter in my life is closed permanently, not with hatred, but with acceptance. Because what I once saw as the end of my story was actually just the turning of a page. And if you are watching this right now, let my story be a reminder. Sometimes life doesn't fall apart to end you. It falls apart to free you. Make sure to subscribe for more powerful real stories and comment where you are watching from. I love connecting with all of you and hearing your thoughts.